the reason that this is important for me is that I would like some sort of rules of this kind for the larger scale violence in my game and design, Dreams of Fire, which is kind of an interesting context for organized violence, group violence in the first place, because the Holy City isn't, it's not the Crusades. There isn't a big wide scale war that's crashing down on the Holy City. It's not in that. I mean, we're not in that analog period. The difficulty, a good example might be, okay, the governor of the empire has, the empire has a governor whose job is the Holy City at any given time. And there's an imperial garrison or military who stay at the Holy City, who are under the command of the governor. And they don't have that much to do. But one thing that they do is that if, for example, there's a changeover of the emperor, or the emperor has appointed a new governor, and that guy shows up with his military guys, and the current governor in the Holy City is popular there, they might say, screw you. We'll kill you guys and, make the emperor like it. We're the Holy City. He needs us more than we need him. And so that kind of battle or something related to that might actually occur. And occasionally there are foreign pilgrims who have traveled 3 continents to get to the Holy City, and they're obviously confused because they think they're bringing the true word to the Holy City this time, because they've figured it out. And of course they're diluted and irritating and foreign, but they've brought a lot of really tough people with them, and they're going to, make their presence in the Holy City known through fire and sword if they have to. And, basically the military garrison there basically says, we've just decided you're heretics. And so, yet again, pitched battles. So it's a different context, but the idea is that some of the characters may be caught in the midst of such a thing, or responsible, or have some part in such an event. And I want some system for it. I also, if I go insane and actually publish anything or add anything to Circle of Hands could use some rules for the outcome of group violence. The fights in those kinds of battles or events in Circle of Hands are very raider-oriented, very brutal. Nobody fights in equal force. It's basically coming down upon a weaker target and laying waste to it. But on occasion, the target is not as weak as you thought, or characters or other forces may find themselves in the midst of this and having an opinion about it. So I think it would be useful to come up with a blanket system that would apply to both games in different ways. So this kind of thing has been on my mind for a little bit. A lot of the games that I have with those kinds of rules have been sitting in a pile on my desk for a while, as I try to figure it out. So here's the interesting point. One, what if your character is responsible for something in the battle, right? They have position, and we have the dramatic circumstance of them, at a folding table out there in the hills, as their aides bring them maps and couriers come running in telling them the latest news, and they're scratching their head and deciding what to do and where to direct troops to go. Or you have similar roles or circumstances by which miscommunications are occurring. Different responsible people in different aspects of this military situation or semi-military situation each one is working with incomplete information and has to make decisions. All of which is different from somebody who's huddled behind a bush. Here's a command to either retreat or charge or do something or whatever, and then has to cope with it. You'd think with all the tools of 46 years of role-playing, we'd be as good at this as we are at casting spells to web somebody. But I'm not very good at it. Sean, what's...
Because I've been working with the community rules from, Quest Worlds now, but previously Hero Quest.
Right.
Is the idea, specifically the community as army, resolving conflicts between the two communities, 1 army, 2 armies, 5 armies, if you're into that kind of thing.
Well, it also is useful because you could use your commander skill or ability to augment the power of that community. Hero Wars, it's cursed. I'm using the ancient name for this system, which is Hero Wars. But this system is very useful because the mechanism of resolution is exactly the same no matter what. And it's all just, and if this thing operates at a given scale, well, it just does.
Yes.
And so then you can say, well, is this relevant to affecting that? It features an augment system by which you increase your chance by rolling something else first and seeing how much it boosts. Sorcerer also has an augment system. But the one in this system that you're talking about, Quest Worlds, is nice because communities and abilities are wide open to be named in character creation and created throughout play. So if you want your character to become if events make it perfectly sensible for your character to have a certain rank or a certain role in this community, and the community is under stress of some kind, well, you've got numbers for what's attacking the community, you've got numbers for the community, and you've got numbers for your abilities. And all of those numbers are compatible in the system. So actually that strikes me as kind of how to frame it is a completely different question.
Yeah, right, yes, exactly. But for the system aspect of it, I think that it works very well.
Right.
But it's something that's been on my mind because like the genre pack I'm working on for it, Afterthought, has developed into being a very strong community conflict type of game as opposed to individual conflict type of thing. So it's something that I've been playing with for a while now.
Okay, so
unsuccessfully so far.
Still, though, I mean, I know the system well enough to think that it's largely a matter of framing authorities and degree of consequence for the next time you roll, and not actually any conceptual problem with, using the dice or announcing abilities and stuff like that. I mean, it's more a matter of framing who gets to roll when, about what, and how much impact is it going to have. The damage to the community, for example, comes to mind. What is that? So, in the games I'm thinking of, the ones that I've designed and am working on, Circle of Hands and Dreams of Fire, the thematic or ideological backing for those games is very, very brutal. The idea that the heroic individual could turn the tide of battle, or the idea that your symbolic presence in the front line of this battle may not logistically turn the tide of battle, but in sort of story cinematic terms, it does, basically. Your bellow of defiance as you participate in the charge. Is, the camera looks at you, not at the whole charge. So that doesn't fit in those games. These games are much more brutally existential. They're like, no, it's, the gods do play dice with the universe, and they don't care, and the dice don't care. And you know what? They're not even gods, because there's nothing rolling the dice. And so, screw you. You're caught in it. Now what do you do? So the battle for a game like that is much more a context of how screwed are you in this moment? And the outcome of the battle itself may actually not be subject to any kind of, there may be. I could even see it. It would be sort of awful to say, guess what? For every confrontation in Circle of Hands, roll regular resolution between regular combat resolution between faceless sides. And you would have these kind of generic entities that fight each other, and one side has the advantage die, the red die in Circle of Hands, and that's it. They just go, round by round until one of them's gone, and that's it. And so it's you have no way of how the battle's going to go. You can anticipate based on who you think has the advantage. I don't know. There might have to be some system, providing some logic to what happens, but it would be relatively generic, and it would be relatively brutal. You don't want to be caught in a battle. You don't know how it's going to go, and it puts you in danger at every single step. Something like that. So we can think of these battles as being subject to personal effort and presence, sort of the heroic model. Or you can think of them as just being this horrific, they're like the weather. There's this horrific set of conditions that you just simply have to get yourself through if you want your character to be walking and talking afterwards. Those seem like pretty different models for any such system. And I can definitely see which one suits the games I'm talking about. What other? This is a kind of a cool thing. We've talked in lots of times about sort of a political context, or we talk about the battle of, if we take a sort of establishment view, a lot of games have, the law and the forces of order up against, the forces of, criminality and outlawry and anarchy, right? Sort of suburban America's ideals of how the world's supposed to work. And so, criminals are going to take away your suburb, and you are, in this struggle. You're a tough cop, on the line in this struggle, or you're a superhero standing up for the ideals of the society and whatever. There's a lot of things that games that frame heroics in this way. And I can think of very, very few superhero games in which there's any way to determine how the ebb and flow of the forces of evil and the forces of good is actually going to go. You can catch this bank robber or whatever, but how does this, apply? Justin really wanted to talk about this for the game he was designing. We did a bunch of sessions on that. Jerry Grayson is working on such a thing for Godsend Agenda right now. So he's got a system that he's struggling with as far as that goes. All of them are oriented toward this idea that the sides, the forces, the larger institutions have points and hit points, and they fight each other. And Greg Stolze did the same thing, a little bit like what we talked about for Burning Empires with his game Reign, where you have organizations clash with their points and their values. And then you have individual adventures. And those are usually sequential.